Okay, so we're glad you guys are here with us today. And actually what we're doing today is we're doing part 2 of our series on turning desert into pasture. That's what's going on behind us. Good morning, everyone. This is Dwayne with Edge of Nowhere Farm, and we're here on the last day of September of 2017. And actually what we're doing today is we're continuing our series on turning desert into pasture. So this is our second portion or second video of this one, at least the official second video. We've been doing a lot of things around the farm this fall, a lot of new things going on, but this is something that we've really, again, been looking forward to. It's going to be part of our pastured chicken operation. This is actually where we'll be raising them. So what we need to do first is we need to actually convert this just desert land into pasture that they can actually pasture on. So what we're doing today, more specifically, is we're going to actually be removing some wood chips. The wood chips that you see behind me, if Lori can pan down just a little bit, the wood chips that you see behind me on the ground have actually been on the ground for almost exactly a year. We haven't done any extra watering back here. This has just been the natural rainfall. And what we're doing is we're testing our pasture. So a small portion of our pasture is going to be where these wood chips were. Today, our first goal is to get these wood chips moved. So we're going to be using these wood chips on other parts of the farm. We've got some fruit trees that we need to actually add the wood chips to, just to build up that layer going into the fall and winter, so they'll be ready for next spring and partially broken down. So we'll be using those predominantly there, and then we'll be having some extra piles just kind of sitting around the farm that we can use for different tasks. So we can use them for chores like composting and things like that. So first thing this morning in this first part of the video, we just wanted to show you kind of the before, and we'll cut here in just a second so you can see the after once we have these moved out of the way. Okay, everybody, so we're back, and Lori and I just spent the last three exhausting hours moving wood chips. We got some leftover wood chips over in the corner, and we've got a lot of our fruit trees in the back. You're going to get a good shot of some of our fruit trees behind me here. But what I wanted to show you real quick before we went any further today, if Lori can kind of, or if you guys can make this out, you can kind of look down on the ground here, you'll be able to see the difference between the soil that was underneath the wood chips for the last year and the soil that was not. So the soil on my left-hand side is soil that is just basically tilled raw dirt here in Arizona, with caliche and all kinds of other nasty stuff. Still pretty, we did till it, so it is tilled, so it's soft, but it's truly just silt, it's clay, it's dry clay. As opposed to the rest of it, which was underneath the wood chips, you can see is a little darker. There's still a thin layer of wood chips, but a lot of that is actually humus, which is actually created by the bugs underneath that have been chewing up and breaking down a lot of that organic matter and then leaving their manure behind. That's essentially what that is. So it's mixed with organic matter and their manure. So we've got a thin layer of that on here. So what we're actually going to be doing now is we're going to be finishing up on the tilled side. So we actually are going to show you real quick a real simple way of flattening out dirt once you've actually tilled it. So we're going to cut here in a second, but I wanted you guys to see the difference between what was underneath the wood chips and then just the raw land. And then as we go through this process, we'll really be able to see if it does make a difference once we start growing in this. But we're going to cut here real quick, and then we're going to show you what we're using to flatten out the rest of the tilled ground. Okay, so we showed you just now what it looks like between the tilled side and the non-tilled side, or the wood chip side. Now what I want to do is kind of show you what we're doing to flatten out the ground. So where we are now, you'll see grapevines behind me, so that's our grapevines, and our garden beds that are empty because we haven't gotten to that yet. But what you see here is you see tilled ground. So this is tilled ground, it's all raw, just desert land. And I don't know whether or not you'll be able to make out the ripples. Lori may need to pan down so you can actually see the ground. Because obviously when you till, you're going to have rows, so it creates rows. Obviously we don't want to have those rows for our chicken tractor. We want it to be fairly level. So what we've actually created here is something to level out the ground, and it's a real inexpensive way of doing it. So what we have is we have some galvanized mesh fencing on the ground. I've taken some 3/4 inch EMT pipe and some tie wire to tie it to the end so that we can pull it, and we have a straw bale sitting on top. So what that does is it weights it down, and if Lori can pan to that side, last night we walked through, it took us about 5 to 10 minutes. We walked through that side, you'll see it's much more level, and it levels out those till rows that are created. So what we're going to do here for the next few minutes is we're going to finish this up because it's getting really warm. It's about 10 o'clock, heading towards 95 today. we are in the desert, and it's starting to feel like it, even on the last day of September. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this through the rest of it. We got about half done last night. Take us about 10 minutes or so to finish this up, and then we're going to come back to you and talk to you a little bit about how we're going to start seeding. So we'll go through that today as well. So we're going to break here. We'll come back in just a second. Okay, so we're back, and we've actually, if you can see behind me, we got all that flattened out. Got a few bigger rocks that we still need to come back to and remove from the pasture. But it's flattened now. It's pretty much ready for seed. So what we're going to do is we're going to get to the seeding process this morning. It's about mid-morning, so not ideal time to seed, but we are going to cover with some straw, water a couple times today, and then we'll water a couple times each day to get it established. But what I wanted to do before I started that is I wanted to show you what we're using as far as our pasture seed. So first and foremost, obviously we need to establish some grass, just something as a base layer. I don't want Bermuda grass back here, and we are not going to be doing our broiler chickens during the middle of summer, which is when Bermuda grows. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to use perennial ryegrass. So you'll see that here in front of me. We just got a big 50-pound bag of it. This came from Home Depot. It was like 90 bucks. So not super cheap, but it's enough to cover all of this. We got a couple thousand square feet behind us. This can cover up to about 5,000 square feet. So we're putting a layer of this grass down. Typically here in Arizona, in the Phoenix area, you start that on October 1st. Tomorrow being October 1st, we're about ready to do that. So we're going to go ahead and get a jump on that today. About a month ago, if you click here, you'll be able to see us first discussing our desert to pasture process. So when you see that, you'll see us talk a little bit about testing some areas and kind of just what our idea was for this whole area. On that day, when we posted that video, we actually put a little test patch down of just the pasture seed. So we have the perennial ryegrass, which we're going to be putting down today. And then we also have a pasture seed, a Southwest pasture seed that we got from Nature Seed. That's this little bag here. It's 10 pounds. It's supposed to cover about half an acre, depending on how heavy you plant it. So we're going to be planting that. But we wanted to test it out in this small little patch just to see how it would do in the middle of summer. So, we were at the hottest part of summer when we put this in. And actually, if Lori wants to zoom in a little bit closer, I'll talk a little bit about what comes in this blend, and you can see what it's done. So we've got, I believe this is flax, not 100% sure, but there is some flax in here, and I'm just going to read some of the ingredients. So it's we've got alfalfa, red clover, there's some peas, which I think are just field peas, a couple different types of common flax, some alsiki clover, white clover, and some red clover. So a few different types of clover, some flax, and then what you also see in here is our homegrown local ragweed, which obviously we're going to have, which is fine. We're not trying to get a beautiful turf here. The whole idea is we have some things in here that are going to attract bugs, which the birds just love to eat, and that's the whole idea, is we want to have healthy birds that are going to be on this pasture eating some of the greens. They'll eat some of the flax, which is good for omega-3 content. We love that in all of our foods. And so that's really kind of the idea behind this, is that obviously the bugs give them some extra protein, and then the flavor of the birds themselves will be a lot different, which is what our goal is. We want something that tastes better and is beyond organic. So more than what you can get, if you go to Sprouts and spend $5 or $6 a pound on an organic chicken, they're fine. They're better than just your conventional chickens, but they don't taste much different. And the whole idea is to get a different taste, which of course still is chicken. So it still tastes like chicken, but we want it to taste like chicken, not nothing. So anyhow, this is our little test patch, which did really, really good. Watered it twice a day, right through the hottest part of the end of summer. So this will be going in along with the perennial ryegrass. So without further ado, Lori and I are going to get to the least labor-intensive part of our day today, and that's actually planting some seed. Okay, so we're back, and it's been an exhausting day. We spent all day getting the wood chips moved, which was our biggest project this morning. We came back through, we got straw down, which you'll see behind me. So we've got the whole pasture area done. It's all seeded, so we got the seed down underneath the straw. The straw's there really more than anything to keep some of the birds from eating all the seed. They're going to eat some. But also it's going to act as a small layer of mulch, because we're not going to do heavy mulch on top of this. But it'll act as a small layer of mulch, keep a little bit of the water in there, so it'll help with that somewhat. And it'll also help attract some beneficial insects to eat and some of that organic matter until we get our own organic matter in there once this starts going. And once we get the birds on there, obviously we'll get plenty of nitrogen for the grass. That won't be an issue. So that's so our next step is actually to go ahead and give this the new seeds a shot of fertilizer. So we're going to be using Old Faithful, our fish emulsion. We're going to be using some kelp. This is pure kelp plant food. So using a little bit of this, and I'm going to use a hose-in sprayer because it's obviously a big area. I don't need a lot of the fertilizer on there, but I do want some on everything. So we're going to get that done, and that's kind of our next step. So that's really kind of it for today. We may take one more quick shot at what it looks like once we got that done. One thing I do want to discuss is how we're going to irrigate this. So what we're going to do is we're going to use one of those sprayers that kind of goes like this. I forget what they're called, but it's basically we're going to be able to move it. We can't run traditional irrigation on here, and the reason why, or a solid irrigation, the reason why is because we're going to have a chicken tractor that's going to be moving, but we're not going to water directly in front of it from day to day. So we have to be able to move our irrigation based on where that tractor is, which can literally be anywhere on this pasture. So we can't use traditional in-ground PVC sprinkler heads that are stationary. It has to be able to move. So I'm going to go ahead and jump on this, and we'll probably come back to you real quick at the end to say goodbye. You can kind of see what it looks like when I'm done. Okay, everybody, we're back, and we're actually done. It took all day, but we actually got our pasture pretty much, well, I guess it's not established, but we're partially there. So if you look behind me, you can see we've got the watering system going, what we're doing, at least for watering for now. We've had it on for probably about an hour or so, soaking the seeds really well. We're gonna have to hand water just a little bit on the outskirts. Probably gonna look at replacing one of these that has a little more coverage. We've got one that's got a lot of coverage. It's covering about half of it. The other one's not quite covering about a third. So we think if we can get one of the bigger ones and get two of the bigger ones going, it'll get the vast majority of this watered for us until we can get it established. So so this is pretty much it. So this is it for part 2. So we're going to continue this. We'll give you guys updates as we start getting some of this growth in here. We're pretty excited to see what that's going to look like. So we'll give you updates here over the next few weeks. So this has been Dwayne and Lori reminding you, if we can farm on the edge of nowhere, so can you. Good? Okay. Okay, so how am I going to do this? This is the intro. Is it on? Oh, I didn't hear it going. I'm not figuring this out very good. I forget what that thing's called, but you guys know what I'm talking about. That fan thing that goes like this.